U.S.-Iran stalemate again. Oil prices rise again. And the HantaVirrus is now in the U.S., specifically Virginia. I know it's the HantaVirus, but HantaVirus. I heard Hanta in a certain language means fraud. I'm not going to get into that. This is the foundation today, Monday, May 11th, 2026. I am Sot L, seeker of truth L, speaker of truth L, and we're going to jump right into these current events. Make sure you check out welcome to thefoundation.com. Sign up for the email list. At the very least, you get an email saying that you need to confirm. No, you'll get a message saying that you got to check your email and confirm. It's not true. We don't even use that email provider that required that extra step. It's just my fault. I continually forget to, get into contact with the webmaster to get that handled. My fault, but sign up for the email list nonetheless. Welcome to thefoundation.com. Let's check out silver. $85. Right around there. Jumping between 64 cents, 69 cents. I've seen it as low as, 20 something cents, even as low as 5 cents. But silver currently $85 around there, spot price. Gold is at $4,718 and some change. Silver looks like it has some room to go. Yes, it does. Let's check out the Shanghai Exchange spot price for Eastern silver prices, $96.06. Spot price for Western silver prices, $85.18. Nice little arbitrage. You want to buy silver in the Western markets and then go to China and sell it. Good luck. It's a lot of traveling. U.S. Iran stalemate lifts oil prices as Hormuz closure persists. The president's swift rejection of Iran's response to a U.S. peace proposal has fueled concerns that the 10-week-old conflict will drag on and continue to paralyze shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, pushing oil prices higher today, days after Washington floated a proposal aimed at reopening negotiations. Iran yesterday released a response focused on ending the war on all fronts, including Lebanon, where U.S. ally Israel is fighting Iran-backed Hezbollah militants. Tehran also demanded compensation for war damage, emphasized its sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, and called on the United States to end its naval blockade, guarantee no further attacks, lift sanctions, and remove a ban on Iranian oil sales. Within hours, Trump dismissed the offer in a social media post. Quote, "I don't like it. All caps, totally unacceptable." End quote. Doesn't look like it's ending soon. I would call it a military strategy of bombing them into submission. Doesn't seem to be bringing forth fruit. U.S. experience fighting Iran offers lessons for China, experts say. I was told years ago, do not worry about Russia, do not worry about Ukraine, do not worry about Iran, do not worry about Syria, do not worry about any of these other countries. The United States is face to face with China, and it will become more and more evident as the years pass on. The man was right. He was right about many things. As the war in Iran enters its third month, it's providing a window for China into how U.S. military capabilities work under fire, and a useful reminder that on any battlefield, the adversary always has a big say in the outcome. CNN spoke with a range of experts in China, Taiwan, and elsewhere about how the last 2 months of fighting in and around the Persian Gulf can inform what might happen in any possible conflict that would pit Beijing against Washington. They're posturing. CNN spoke with a range of Chinese experts, y'all. A range. They warned of China misreading its own strengths, lack of experience, and holding on to a too narrow view of the conflict and its consequences. Fu Xianshao. I don't know, man. I took Chinese 1 in high school, just so you know, so I be trying, y'all. A formal colonel in China's Air Force and said his major takeaway from the fighting so far is that the People's Liberation Army can't forget about its defenses, noting how Iran has found ways around U.S. anti-missile systems like the Patriot or terminal high-altitude area defense. Quote, "We need to devote significant efforts, to to identify weakness in our defensive side to ensure we remain invincible in future wars, end quote. Future wars. Passengers from the HantaVirrus, hit cruise ship being monitored at U.S. medical unit. 16 passengers, including one who tested positive, are in Nebraska, while 2 more are in Atlanta's Emory University Hospital, I'm sure. All 16 people in Nebraska are asymptomatic, meaning they're not showing symptoms, while one of the people in Atlanta is experiencing symptoms, health officials said. The virus, typically tied to rodents, may have passed from human to human on board the MV Hondius cruise ship. The World Health Organization said 3 ship passengers have passed away since April 1st, and a handful of others are sick. The HantaVirrus remains a low risk to the general public, the Global Health Agency said. This is not another panorama poke situation, end quote, its chief said. We'll see. I don't think people are going to stand for that. Way too soon. Consumer sentiment declines to another new record low as Americans fret over the Iran war. Oh, they didn't try to do us. Consumer sentiment continued to decline this month, reaching a fresh record low as the war in Iran drags on, keeping energy prices elevated. The University of Michigan's latest consumer survey, released Friday, showed sentiment fell early this month to a preliminary reading of 48.2. I swear I just read this, but this says May 8th. So this was a couple days ago. I haven't done current events since last week, but I feel like last time we did this, it was around 50 or so. Y'all let me know. I swear I just read something like this. Sentiment had previously reached its lowest point just last month. There it is. Below anything seen during the Great Recession, the panorama, and the inflation surge afterward. Quote, 1/3 of consumers spontaneously mentioned gasoline prices, and about 30% mentioned tariffs. Taken together, consumers continue to feel buffeted by cost pressures led by soaring prices at the pump. Middle East developments are unlikely to meaningfully boost sentiment until supply disruptions have been fully resolved and energy prices fall, end quote. This is Joanne Su, the survey director, in a release statement. Here's the index. Oof, it's pretty low. So it is below, the recession. Then you have the Great Recession of 2008. It's even lower than that. This is a 20-year average, 78 points. I know I'm pointing out stuff you already see, but look. Previous historic lows, 50. Now we're at 48.2. That's the deal. Americans lean on credit cards and buy now, pay later as gas prices eat bigger share of income. Data shows lower income households spend 4.2% of income on gas, the highest since March 2022. American household budgets are under pressure from higher gas prices, and new data shows that consumers are turning to credit to cushion the blow of elevated fuel costs. A report by the Bank of America Institute found that lower income households saw the share of their income spent on gas rise to 4.2%, up from 3.9% last year, and the highest level for the month of March since 2022, based on internal Bank of America customer deposit data that's been aggregated and anonymized. By contrast, the average household across income groups spent about 3.1% of their income on gas in March, an increase from 2.8% relative to the same time last year. Just want y'all to know they're monitoring your accounts and out of your deposits. They know exactly what you're purchasing, and they can aggregate and anonymize data all they want. But man, I don't feel good about that. That's why I do business through trust. Additionally, about 10% of lower income consumers spent more than 10% of their household income in March on gas as prices jumped amid the Iran war, constraining oil shipments from the Middle East, compared with 6% of higher income households. Quote, lower income households spend more as a share of their income on gas just because they have less room for discretionary spending than middle and higher income households. Those two things together mean that the rising gasoline prices we've seen will really squeeze lower income households the most, end quote. David Tinsley said that. He's a senior economist at the Bank of America Institute. Ouch. I'm trying to stay alive. Jobs at mom and pop shops are disappearing. Shirley Maudlin started her manufacturing business 20 years ago in her garage with her husband. Now she fears the company won't survive. Maudlin's tiny company based in Powhatan, Virginia, faces major delays on components and price hikes of up to 400% that she blames on tariffs. She is struggling to pass those costs on to clients and has fallen 90 days behind on payments to vendors. Quote, everything is delayed or high price. The customer is screaming, it's killing us, end quote. Maudlin, owner of 3D Design and Manufacturing, told CNN in a phone interview, mom and pop shops are under increasing pressure from a confluence of factors: tariffs, high interest rates, expensive health insurance, and now surging energy costs. Small businesses with fewer than 10 employees have cut jobs 13 months in a row, according to, y'all see that? I love it. according to a new analysis by the Democratic staff at the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee that was first shared with CNN. That's a big change from the spike in small business optimism that accompanied President Donald Trump's 2024 victory. Maudlin already had to forego raises for her workers this year. Now she's being forced to contemplate what was once unthinkable, whether to sell the business or lay off any of her highly skilled machinists. Quote, I'm trying to stay alive. I can't sleep at night, end quote. Trevor Frampton owns a feed and pet supply store in Santa Rosa, California, with his wife. They have been unable to pass costs on to cash-strapped consumers because he fears they will turn to larger rivals or e-commerce options instead. Now Frampton is considering letting employees go for the first time in a decade. Quote, there is something so wrong with this economy right now. My customers are buying less and they are buying down. The only option left is reduction in force, and that just makes my stomach turn, end quote. Frampton said employment at mom and pop shops tumbled by 292,200 jobs in 2025 alone, according to the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee's analysis based on the Intuit QuickBooks Small Business Index. Use QuickBooks, all that information is being aggregated and allegedly anonymized and sold. That's the most since tracking began a decade ago. By comparison, mom and pop shops lost 87,800 jobs in 2024. And that's according to, don't forget that. Beef, the unexpected force keeping beef prices high and why the pressure could last for years. Personally, I don't eat beef, but I know a lot of people do. Beef prices aren't easing anytime soon, and economists warn the pressure could last for years. That's because the U.S. cattle herd has fallen to its smallest size in 75 years after years of drought, rising food costs, and an aging ranching workforce forced producers to scale back. Quote, the biggest thing has been drought, end quote. This is Eric Belasco, head of the Agricultural Economics Department at Montana State University. Years of dry weather have wiped out grasslands across the Western Plains, leaving ranchers without enough feed or water to sustain their herds. Many have been forced to sell cattle early, including breeding cows needed to produce the next generation of calves, making it harder to rebuild. Drought quickly makes it harder and more expensive for ranchers to raise cattle. As conditions worsen, hay production falls, feed gets more expensive, and herd sizes shrink, according to data from the Kansas City Federal Reserve. But even when conditions improve, rebuilding the herd takes time. Quote, the fact of the matter is there's really nothing anybody can do to change this very quickly. We're in a tight supply situation that took several years to develop, and it will take several years to get out of it, end quote. This is Darrell Peel, a professor of agricultural economics at Oklahoma State University. Peel, who specializes in livestock marketing, said it takes roughly 2 years to bring cattle to market and several more years to rebuild herds, leaving little room for short-term relief. Watch out for all that 3D printed beef. You see there's a shortage, right? So if you don't see the correlating shortage at the market and the correlating increase in beef prices at the market, then you're probably eating 3D printed meat. And I think they passed something in the government that they can't even label, or they don't have to label the foods as GMO, something of that nature. I need to do some more research. Chocolate recall hits company's entire product lineup. All of it over salmonella contamination. Fears. Spring and mulberries, they look like this. This is what they look like. I hope you're good. Is expanding its recall of select chocolate bars to include all 12 of its product lines over concerns of possible salmonella contamination. This is according to federal regulators. The Friday announcement marks the second widening of the recall affecting the North Carolina-based company, a brand known for sweetening its chocolate bars exclusively with dates. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration said the move follows an investigation that identified a batch of dates as the likely source of the contamination. Quote, the investigation has now identified a single lot of date ingredient used in the production of the company's chocolate as the most likely source of contamination, end quote. I mean, that's good for the company, I guess. You can blame it on the supplier, but this is going to cost the company a lot of money. While 8 products were previously affected in the last recall update announced in January, the latest expansion now includes all 12 flavors listed by the company. Fam, it's May. January to May 5th, that's 5. Yo, that's a long time. The update adds the blood orange, coffee, pure dark, and sea salt varieties to the recall list, according to federal regulators. So this is the third widening. Iran war disrupts the circuit board supply chain, raises costs for tech firms. And this, I don't know if you were ever exposed to the whole, World Economic Forum, you will own nothing and be happy. Well, if you're not familiar, they put out a commercial right around COVID. And it was, saying all these things that were going to happen in the future. One of them was you won't own cars, I think. And the other one was you won't own anything. You'll rent everything and it will be delivered by drone. You should jump on YouTube, type in "you will own nothing and be happy" original, if you've never seen it, and check it out. So with the whole own nothing thing, you can't do stuff just immediately, right? But, I'm sitting here looking around the increase in cost of everything, right? As well as tech, RAM, hard drives, processors, as well as graphical processing units or GPUs. It seems to me as people are beginning, especially lower income people, are beginning to be priced out of laptops and PCs, home, private. I saw an ad for HP, and then there's a company in the UK that is renting PlayStations, and HP leases. They're pushing this, like companies are getting behind this thing. So the price of these components to build a computer are getting so high that I think, pretty soon most people are going to be priced out of building their own computer. Most people are going to be priced out due to the price of the components of purchasing their own computer outright. And leasing is going to be the only thing available for most people. Case in point, the new Apple Neo, the MacBook Neo or whatever, y'all know that they made that new MacBook within a previous generation iPhone board. They pulled the board, the motherboard and whatnot out of an iPhone. And let's not say that. They used the same schematic and built iPhone logic boards and then put them in a laptop. It only has 8 gigs and it's only 128 gigs of memory. Of hard drive space on one, and the highest one is 256 gigabytes of hard drive space. If you record anything, any videos, if you do anything, take photos, you know how much space that is not. And that's the push for everything being in the cloud and you not even having your own data locally. I see what's coming. And I apologize for my little rant. I digress. Let me get back on point. The conflict in the Middle East has disrupted supplies of crucial raw materials and pushed up prices of the printed circuit boards, or PCBs, used in almost all electronic devices, from smartphones and computers to AI servers, industry sources and executives said. And you got to understand, PCBs, the microcontrollers, the ECUs, electronic control units in cars, SUVs, trucks. They're in microwaves, they're in refrigerators, they're in televisions, they're in your laptop, they're in pretty much they're in your coffee makers, man. There's PCB boards in your coffee makers. The disruption is a fresh blow to electronics manufacturers, which are already grappling with soaring memory chip costs, which is also RAM, random access memory, and highlights the broadening impact of the Iran war that has wreaked havoc on supply chains, plastics, and oil supplies. And they was like, yo, 20% of the world's commerce goes through the strait. 20% is crazy. PCB prices have been climbing since late last year, driven by a growing appetite for AI servers. Demand has been accelerating sharply since March as manufacturers scramble to secure raw material supplies and soften the impact of skyrocketing costs. 3 industry sources told Reuters in April alone, PCB prices surged as much as 40% from March. Goldman Sachs analyst said in a recent note. I don't know if you're familiar. I like tech, right? I like code and stuff. So these little single board computers, they're made on PCBs and they're called Raspberry Pis. You might be familiar. They're really ubiquitous. There's a lot of support for them. There's a lot of things you can do with these things. You can learn how to code. They're amazing, right? And I've used it to teach my children stuff. I use them for different things within the home. I've made network attached storages, routers. I've done all types of things with these things, right? So the most recent one is a Raspberry Pi 5 with 16 gigs of RAM. When that first came out, like last year, when I first bought it last year, I paid $120 for that thing. $120 for this little, it's about the size of maybe a small like notebook, like a notes, a smaller like notebook. But it's an entire computer. It's got a processor, it's got the RAM, it has everything but the memory and the peripherals and like a case and stuff. Like you need a keyboard, mouse, HDMI cable. But it has everything you need. You just need to get a hard drive. But most people use like these little cards for, anyways. I checked the price of that thing. That thing right now is $310. I paid $120 for that thing. It's $310 right now. And, it fluctuates. They do little promotions and stuff. $310. $310. That's over 100% price increase. RAM, random access memory. A little over a year ago, I bought a bunch of different memory for a bunch of different, a couple laptops, PCs that I have, Macs, whatever. And I just upgraded the RAM and, older hard drives to solid state drives and stuff. I just was doing some stuff, right? And I bought 64 gigabytes of RAM, random access memory from Crucial, the company Crucial, right? Who no longer is producing for consumers. They're straight business to business now. They announced that a few months ago. Anyways, I paid, I want to say $212 for 64 gigabytes of RAM, right around there, $212. That same kit is over $500 now. Over $500. There's a 2 terabyte SSD Samsung T7 that I bought for about $120. That thing is $545 now. This is crazy. And if you're not paying attention and comparing and contrasting your receipts or anything like that, you're not going to notice it. But this thing, I'm really concerned. We're going to be to the point where we only have access to devices through financing plans through major telecommunications providers like AT&T and Verizon and stuff. And then even then, you're not going to own it. You're just going to lease it. Oh, man. The executive, who declined to be named due to sensitivity on the subject, said his priority has now changed from meeting customers to suppliers, as the waiting time for chemical materials such as epoxy resin have stretched to 15 weeks from 3 weeks previously. The sharp rise in PCB prices was also driven by a shortage of other key materials, including glass fiber and copper foil, according to one source. Copper foil prices have surged as much as 30% so far this year, with the rally gaining momentum in March, the source said. Copper accounts for around 60% of total raw material costs in PCB manufacturing, according to Victory Giant Technology, a major Chinese PCB supplier for NVIDIA. The Chinese firm warned earlier this month that the Middle East conflict could push up prices for key materials, including resin and copper. Multi-layer PCBs can cost around 1,394 yuan or $204 per square meter, with higher end models for AI servers costing around 13,475 yuan. Yeah, it's happening. Energy Secretary open to suspending U.S. gas tax as pump rage surges, with Americans increasingly incensed over the steadily climbing cost of refueling their vehicles. The U.S. Energy Secretary says he's open to all ideas to bring down the price at the pump, to include suspending the federal gas tax. Quote, all measures that can be taken to lower the price at the pump and lower the prices for Americans, this administration is in support of, end quote. Chris Wright told Meet the Press yesterday, quote, we're releasing oil from our strategic petroleum reserves. Wow. Petroleum reserves, and getting 30 other nations to do that in coordination with us. We revised the EPA regulations on summer gasoline blend to make it easier for American refineries to produce more gasoline, end quote. I think it's a great idea for a period of time. Trump was quoted saying, quote, we're going to take off the gas tax for a period of time, and when gas goes down, we'll let it phase back in, end quote. Suspending the tax may only trigger more resentment about the administration's war of choice once they learn the tax only accounts for 18.4 cents per gallon of gas and 24.3 cents for diesel. Americans may view the limp gesture as merely adding insult to injury. In a recent poll, 81% of respondents said gas prices are straining their household finances. It's a bipartisan feeling. 79% of Republicans felt that way. With the midterms now less than 6 months away, the political impact could be significant. 81% of independents say Trump is to blame to some extent. And then last but not least, IBM CEO Arvind Krishna warns Washington must find a Goldilocks middle ground on AI regulation. Pay attention. In an exclusive interview, IBM chairman and CEO Arvind Krishna issued a direct warning to Washington. Finding the Goldilocks middle ground on artificial intelligence regulation is essential to maintaining American dominance. Quote, look, I think we live in a regulated world that is good to have the guardrails around innovation. If I look at it, the banking regulators did not say that AI is a different technology. They were always going to regulate the use case of it, whether it's in payments or it's in terms of customer service. In healthcare, the same thing applies. In telecom, the same thing applies. So there's always a level of government oversight, end quote, Krishna explained. And I get back to the balance between too many regulations. It's terrible, too few. He added, we may not love the outcome, so we got to find the Goldilocks middle. As the U.S. government scrutinizes AI models from tech giants like Google and Microsoft for national security risks, Krishna argues that while guardrails are necessary, any descent into government overreach will allow global competitors to seize the lead, playing on their fears, right? China will have it first. Iran, Israel, Russia will have it first. This is always the balance between innovation and safety. I would just say, pay attention, and don't be fooled. You know, there may be hacks. You know, there are already hacks, and you know, what will I say? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an attorney. I can't give legal advice. I can't give financial advice. But I would say, you know, me personally, what I'm doing is keeping as little currency as possible in the banks. You know, that whole bail-in thing that they passed after the bailout of 2008. You can research that. But I'm just be really careful with this stuff. Be really careful. The power of this artificial intelligence is neutral. It's just who's using it and how it's being applied. But with that being said, that's current events. Y'all enjoy yourself. Take care of yourself. Make sure you say 10 things that you're thankful for before you go to sleep tonight and every night. Is very important. And I'll catch y'all tomorrow. Peace, y'all.